video, we're going to install this, an IDP Plenum. Let me show it to you, and I'll show you where it goes. Get my stool. So this is in pursuit of my low-end torque gain, and basically it's the GT3. It's kind of a, I guess kind of a copy, or it's formed after, you know, I don't know what they did, but when you look at the GT3 Plenum, it's very similar to this. It sits in the car right about here. Right about here, and throttle body, 82mm throttle body attaches right to the end here. And it's got some stuff on here I'll show you that you've got to bolt on. So it's got some kind of valve in here that, from what I understand, when the engine is under load, this will close in order to maximize the amount of vacuum. And I could have this backwards, but something happens here when the engine's under load to maximize the amount of vacuum that the intake ports, I guess, the intake ports are getting. It's got a vacuum line right here. It's got another one here. And when you look at the GT3 Plenum, it's very similar in design. It's made out of aluminum, and evidently the reason for that is because even though aluminum will be hotter to the touch, aluminum, that just means that it's dissipating heat more, as opposed to the plastic one, which allows a lot of the heat to stay in the air. So supposedly this amount of surface area will help with cooling down the air. As far as the installation goes, obviously something screws right there. And I really don't know which way is up. Probably this way, because they've got their branding right here. So my guess is this is up. From what I understand, getting on the straps that hold the intake manifold to the plenum is the hardest part, especially back here. From what I've researched, these clamps clamp like this. There might be a hinge back here, but they clamp like this as opposed to just one strap. And that's going to make it especially difficult to A, get it on back here, and B, clamp it down. The only video on YouTube on this doesn't really give a good explanation of the installation because there's no sound, and unfortunately the guy did not really put a lot of effort into setting up his camera to get views of what he was actually doing. So anyway, IDP says this is a 4-hour job, and that's if you know what you're doing. So that might take a little longer for me. Also, IDP has cut all of these little holes, and I don't know if you can see it, but all of these little golf ball dimples. They're on the top and the bottom. I hope you can see that. And what they said was, imagine the turbo, right? You've got the turbos way down here. Now this is not a turbo car, but using it as an example, those pipes are long. They're over 24 inches long, probably. And when you have this dimpling inside a tube that long, it does improve the airflow and increase the velocity of the air. They said they don't know how much it matters here, but they decided to do it anyway because it's kind of like a trademark of their technology. So anyway, the first thing we're going to do is remove the bumper, and to get the bumper off, the lights have to come out. This light bar does not come out. This is actually attached to the bumper, but the whole bumper comes off. So I think what I'll do is put it in time lapse so you can see the bumper and how we get it off. Before though, I'll walk around and show you where all the screws are. It's just time consuming. It's not necessarily hard. This time I am going to jack up the car a little bit so that I can have better access to the screws in the fender well, or the wheel well. But anyway, I'll do a time lapse of taking this off, just to help speed up this video. And let's see, hopefully this won't be as difficult as I'm anticipating it to be. I'll just give you a quick run through of where the screws are. There's 3 along this side, one up here, one here, and one at the bottom. I'm going to jack the side of the car up on both sides when I try to get the wrench in there, because especially this one, it was hard to get to last time I did this. Right up under here, we've got 2 screws. I'm pretty sure there's 2. There's screws underneath the air spoiler back here, all the way across. There's screws right here underneath this plate. I've removed the plate on this side already, and I can't remember if I have to take out this screw or not, but definitely these 2. They hold the headlight in, I'm sorry, tail light. Tail light pops out and then just really has a clip back here that holds it in place. So there's only 2 screws that hold the tail light in. And then there's 4 screws behind this bar right here. And then once you've got all the screws out, the whole thing just pops loose, and then we'll start taking the air thing off. This thing right here comes off, and then we'll start to just dismantle piece by piece until we get back to the factory plenum. All right, so I'm going to put us in time lapse. Here we go. Okay, here's what it looks like with the bumper off. So you got pretty good access to everything. There's a bunch of heat shielding around the exhaust. There's the air boxes. I'll check my K&Ns. They probably have 2,000 miles on them. Be interesting to see how dirty they are after 2,000 miles. So what's next is to determine if I have to take out the wing or not. I know I have to pull those fans out. So what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and lower the wing, pull the fans out, and just keep exploring to see what needs to come out to get in there. All right, I've taken this out before. It's really just held in there with rubber grommets. Fans. There we go. And this plastic cover here are the fans are sandwiched in between this plastic cover and there we go. So this is 2 pieces, this guard, and then this scoop, which delivers air in 2 different spots down into this box. So we'll set this aside. And then, you know, I can see down in there. And I can actually see the throttle, I can see the factory plenum. I'm going to go ahead and unplug these fans, get them out of the way. All right, let me show you what I'm seeing. Right there, that metal clamp looking thing, and should be another one on this side. Right, yep, right there. Right there, you can just see it. It's a little triangle right there. That's the factory plenum. And there's the throttle body. And that hose is what connects the air boxes to the throttle body. So all we have to do is get back there. So I'm going to do some exploring and see how much has to come off. I think the wing has to come off, which I am not excited about that. All right, well, right on. Leave it to Porsche to make this wing easy to get out. It looks like it's just these two screws, these two larger Torx screws. And you don't even have to remove this plate here that has the oil and the coolant. No, at least I don't think you do. Yeah, that's out, but yeah, you just gotta finagle it around there. And then I think this should just lift off. Yeah, it looks like there's a little. So I think I do have to loosen the plate that holds the caps for the oil and the coolant, and then this will come back. This will come right out, and there's definitely electrical connections. So let's find those. And oh, look at that! It's just one. So there's one electrical connection right here. That's incredible. There's just one connection. That's it. Super easy. All right. Get another tool here and unscrew that sucker. Here's the screw that you need to remove right here. Right there. And that will let you lift this up enough to pull the wing out, I think. Let's see. I'm gonna keep all the wing screws right there. And I have the electrical connection undone. And I think this actually has to come off more, so maybe I have to take these off. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to use my body here to brace the using my body to brace the wing so it doesn't fall forward. You take the caps off of that plate and then you will lift the wing right out. And there you go. It was surprisingly easy. All right, next up is the airbox. So there are two screws. One of them's right there. The other one's right here on the other side, right there. And then the clamps that hold the airbox to the hose to the throttle body. So I'm gonna take off these, well, actually no, I'm not, because they're upside down. Isn't that lovely? See that? You can't get to it. So I'm gonna have to take off that hose. The reason why I was gonna take off this first is because then I don't have to mess with that vacuum line right there. But I'm gonna have to mess with it anyway, so I'm gonna take off that clamp right there, and then unscrew both of these, and then hopefully that airbox will just pull out. There's some vacuum lines over here that are clipped on, so I'll unclip those. There's actually solenoids connected to vacuum lines. You know, interestingly, I just read an article on these things that they go bad. They start to crack, kind of like a sprinkler solenoid. These look like they're in great shape, so I'm not really worried about it. All right, two screws and a hose clamp. All right, what I did was I loosened this hose clamp here with the screwdriver, and unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put the screwdriver in there backwards probably and try to break the seal between the the rubber and the throttle body. It's been on there for a while. This vacuum line right here just pulls out, so that's easy. I'm going to stick it in there so I don't get crap in it. And then these things, if you just go right under and push with the screwdriver, I need 2 hands I think, but if you just push this like this, let me put the tripod over here. So if you just push this from underneath, right there, that'll pop right off. And then there's another one right down here. You do the same thing. Kind of working, oh, I can feel it. So kind of working blind, but you can feel when you've got it. It's like on a spring. There it is. So if I lift both of those off, then when I take these 2 out, so I've got the airbox loose, I've got both of these solenoids off. I'm going to go ahead and take this vacuum line out, and I'm going to stick it, I think I'll stick it right down in here carefully. That'll keep any dirt away from it. And then now the only thing, it looks like the only thing up, nope, we've got some more lines or something going on underneath. There's more vacuum lines down there. There's this breather hose right here. This is the hose that actually goes up into the car to make noise. And that's just a quick disconnect, so I don't know if you can see that right there. You just release that hose, and I need to worry about these vacuum lines over here. So let's see where they go. You know, if I could prop this thing up right here, that would be ideal. So let me see if I can't free the throttle body here. There we go. So that rubber is not actually sealed on there from age. There's a groove, and let's see if I can't just yeah, there we go. So these vacuum lines, I don't particularly want to take them off. You know, I don't want to mess with them. Let me show you what they look like. But this is perfect. I can now access the whole motor. So there she is. So these are the vacuum lines that I'm talking about that I don't want to mess with. I just, you know, there's plenty of slack. That thing can just sit there, and it is sure dirty. I think I'm going to clean that. But here's the motor. So there's my belt. There's the alternator. This looks like the power steering pump. This looks like the AC pump based on that clutch looking thing. Here's the oil filter, which kind of a bummer, I don't need to change my oil, but you don't actually have to remove this bumper to change the oil. And there's the plenum back there. So right here, I can barely reach my hand around the back of it. So whoever said that it's tight was right. And then there's the throttle body. Here's my power steering fluid, it looks like. Usually green is power steering, so that would mean that that is the power steering pump. It's funny that it's all the way back here and they got to pump all that fluid all the way forward. But anyway, put the camera, oh, and here's this resonator. So this just comes off the airbox and it goes right into the car. There's a membrane on the airbox side, so it's not going to push carbon monoxide or anything in there, but its only purpose is to make the car sound cool inside the car, which, you know, that's neat, I think. I don't know what that is up there, but man, it looks like it's got some corrosion on it. It looks like some kind of, oh, you know what that is? That's the, I bet that's the computer. It's got a bunch of wires coming out of it, so I bet that's one of the computers. Anyway. Well, I might have to take a break. That is how you access this sucker, and the next thing I'm going to do is figure out how to get that throttle body off. Alrighty, to get this out we need a Torx socket. This one looks about right, and it is, and of course it does fit. I was going to say it barely fits. I had to take one of these and put it on a wheel and grind it down. You can see the difference in diameter in order to get it to fit up in the exhaust manifold. So I thought maybe I would have to do that again, but it does actually fit. So let's go ahead and loosen those screws and get that throttle body off of there. So on the Carrera S, you get the 78mm throttle body, and on the Carrera 4S, you get their largest. Also on the GTS and the GT3, you get the 82mm throttle body. So just, you know, kind of a fun fact. Saved me a little bit of money. These are about 380 bucks. Probably the only reasonably priced thing from Porsche. I don't know why the throttle body is not absurdly more expensive, but it isn't. And when you order the Plenum from IDP or from FabSpeed, they want to know what size throttle body you have, because if you have the 78mm, then it really doesn't fit their Plenum perfectly. You have to have a reducer of some sort. And they recommend that you upgrade to this larger throttle body at the same time. So there's our last screw, and it looks like we probably just have this one wire. So let's see how to get that out. So you just have to squeeze both sides, and then that will pop right out. So when you plug this back in, I read that you may get an error message that has, while it repositions itself. So best to put it back in exactly the way it came out. You know, not mess with that at all. So we'll put that under the car here. And what do we have here? We've got another wiring harness right there on top. So that comes right off. So right here, you'll see this gray thing right here. That just squeezes together, and when you squeeze both sides, it pops right out. I'm just gonna bring this right over, stick it right on top. You know what, I'm gonna put this right down here, off. Maybe you just, oh, I was trying too hard. You just squeeze it. So there's that. So now we can see here that we've got access to this screw, and we have access to this screw over here. I'm just going to loosen those up and see what happens. An adapter, because I got the wrong size. Torx, there we go. So that's completely out. let's go ahead and take this one out. We've got another one of these vacuum lines right here. It's crazy tight. So these vents that I'm taking off are obviously intake vents. I can smell the gasoline. There it goes. There we go. That just turns right off. Very good. Whew, ouch. And there we go. Got that screw out. Really hurt my finger. All right. Now, I don't know if this plenum is... So I have a feeling that this is going to be very difficult. Let's see. Yep, there's that one. I have no idea, there's no difference between the two of these. But man, they weren't kidding when they said there was no access. I figured out these clamps. You have to smack them with a hammer. They're just on there really tight. It was just confusing until I basically just smacked them with a rubber mallet. And once they just kind of drop down. And I'm gonna leave them in place until I can get this rubber thing off to pull the plenum out before I see how they're put back in. There we go. And it just drops down. So then we can work to separate. They don't seem to want to just come out like the other side. I have to see what's behind them before we're gonna really know what the story is. But once those clamps are out of the way, then I think I can take a screwdriver and start to lift. I can find the edge of the plenum right there. I can start to lift it out. This is going to be difficult. There's just literally no access. There's no access to get to anything. Here's basically what happens. You have to take a screwdriver and work these rubber things off, and you just work them, you just keep working them as best you can, and God help me get this thing back together. But once you get them to a certain point, then this thing feels like it'll just come right out, and sure enough, that is what's happening. Now, it doesn't fit really. I mean, it doesn't, there's just not enough clearance. All right, I am stuck. So let me show you how far I got and why I'm stuck. So I got these off, these clamps and these gaskets. I'm gonna clean those up. That was a bear to get off. but basically what's happening is when you pull this out, you can get it out, but that's as far as you can get it. It hits this. All right, I found a lifesaver. His name is Brian with Above and Beyond Performance in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I was trading some messages on Facebook, and he chimed in and said, hey, here's how you do this. It's pretty simple. And yeah, I said, hey, can I call you? And I mean, it's 8:30 at night on a Monday night. And he said, yeah, give me a call. So A+, I really couldn't be happier, really renewed. I was getting discouraged. But here's what we need to do. We need to take these motor mounts right here, have a 18mm bolt on the bottom of them. And basically, you just loosen up that bolt and lower the motor. What we'll do is put the car up on rhino ramps, and then I'll position a jack and some boards underneath the motor on the oil pan, which is actually kind of designed to carry the weight of the motor. And then once those bolts are loose or even all the way removed, the motor will drop down. It'll drop down at least 2 inches, and what happens is the transmission will hit a cross beam in the car, a structural cross beam underneath the transmission, and that's pretty much as low as you can go. So, so it's not like it's going to come crashing down. In fact, it could actually rest on that cross beam. I'm not going to do that, but that is how low I will be able to get it. And from what I understand, that gives plenty of clearance to get up in there and remove the little solenoid from the back and get the plenum out. I may have to take this cap off, and that will be tomorrow's project. So I am going to sleep well knowing that I have a solution. So basically what I did was just put the car up on the rhino ramps, and then I took a board to support a broader distance of the oil pan, and I jacked the floor jack up just so I took the weight of the car. You can see the car will move just a little bit and back it off a little bit. See the car come down just a little bit. And really what I want to do is just take the spring weight, a little bit of the spring weight off. So when I undo these bolts, let's find them, right there. There it is, right there. When I undo this bolt and the one on the other side, it doesn't drop the motor. And then once those bolts are off, I can control how far down I drop the motor. Now, I've never done this before, so we'll see. But what I do know is that the transmission will hit that crossbeam right there. So, you know, I only have a little bit of distance that I can drop this motor before it'll bottom out on its own. So, pretty sure I can't screw anything up, but let's see how it goes. It's only about 58 pounds of torque. I found that out. I called one of the dealers today and they looked it up for me. So I wouldn't say it's at all difficult to break these free. The weight, I can hear the give this a little bit of a crank. I can hear the jack taking on some weight. So I know it's lowering. I just can't tell. So I've got these bolts all the way down to basically the bottom threads. Yeah, so here's what I did. I lowered those bolts all the way down to the last couple threads, and there is now a significantly more amount of room. But it's a little deceiving because you can't actually see the engine drop, but now that it has, I can reach my hand completely behind it. There's plenty of room here, and I don't know how much slack is on that at least I can look at it now. I don't know how much slack is on that solenoid in the back, but at least now I can get behind there and see it. So, yep, there it is right there. All right, we are in way better shape. So what I'm gonna try to do is just work, yep, there we go. Comes right out, and so I need to relocate this solenoid right here onto the new one. And I think it looks like it just probably pops right off. And there's a little screw that holds it in place. And when you look at the new one, right here, you can see where these screws replace that valve, and it just goes right back on there just like it came off. This right here is not used. Here's the factory one that's unused. So let's go ahead and pull that apart and put it on the new one. I'll give you a little better view of what I'm doing. So you just take a screwdriver and pop this off gently. I already did it, but that just pops right off. And then I'm gonna go ahead and remove this first, since that's the tool I've got on there. And this is that, I guess that's probably the airflow sensor switch. And it just pops right off, and there it is. So I'm gonna be careful with that. It's interesting. Anyway, so we'll set that right up here. And we don't reuse this screw. It has its own screw, so I'm going to just put this screw right back where it came from. And then I'm going to remove that solenoid from the back there. There's two screws that hold it in place. And before I take it completely off, I'm going to just look at the new one and figure out where it goes, right? So I'm pretty sure that it uses these two screws based on that angle. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these two. And just make sure that they thread back into that same spot. And I'll have to go find an Allen key to yep. So this sucker's gonna go in there like that. And it should just be an easy direct swap. So let's go ahead and take the other screw out. Find the Allen key that fits this. You know, just for comparison, while we've got the thing apart, let's take a look before I go shoving it back in there. So this one is got a hard wall right here, and the new one has a V'd wall, and it is physically bigger inside. I mean, just, I know you can't really see it, but it's almost like this new plenum comes all the way out to these ribs. So what space they saved with these ribs, the new plenum is taking up that space internally. And honestly, that's the main difference. A little bit larger, made of aluminum, and has an angled feed. So, you know, I've talked to a few people and they said, do you think it's worth it? You know, I said, do you think it's worth it, all this work? And anyway, now that it's out, to be honest with you, if I knew to drop the motor originally, then that would have made everything much easier. But anyway, all right, here, let me show you a look in there. There we go. I turned the light on. So that's what it looks like in there. It's you know, that's the top of the motor. You've got what looks like probably an oil cooler, some kind of something right over here. Looks like that might be the starter right there. And of course the air intakes. And it looks like there's some routing for wiring that isn't being used. And man, it is dirty back there. That's a wire run. So I think I'm going to just kind of take a rag and just wipe down some of this filth. Jeez. And, you know, try to just clean this up a little bit. But all in all, you know, down in there on the motor and everything really isn't all that dirty. So that's what it looks like under your plenum, in case you were wondering. All right, that's a lot better. Cleaned up everything. I used T9. And it's a great product. It dries not tacky, so it'll lubricate the plastics, rejuvenate everything in there. It's safe for wiring. It's obviously safe for metal. And the great thing is it dries not tacky. It dries like a wax. So it'll provide a dust and corrosion protectant on really anything I spray it on. And I'm gonna actually wash this motor once I have it all back together, and before I put the airbox back on, I'll go ahead and just hose it out in there. And the T9 will dry and protect, you know, anything electrical also. So anyway, nice and clean. Let's put the new plenum in. Okay, so here's a little update. There is actually oil in the old plenum. So if you look right here on the rings, right there on the bottom, there's some oil in there. And there's oil on these. In fact, before I clean up tonight, my project was to take all of that inside and wash it up. So what that means, thanks to my Porsche connection, Brian, is that right there is the oil separator. And there was a service bulletin that this year car, prior to a certain month build, it needed to be replaced. And the annoying thing is that it's probably under warranty, but because I have the car apart, it just makes sense to go ahead and replace it. It's got 2 screws, and then there's 2 fittings on the back with hoses that come in and out. So I think I'm going to call the dealer in the morning and see what they have to say, and see if I can't maybe get it under warranty and get them to give it to me. If not, I gotta tell you, if it's under $100, I'll just buy it and go ahead and replace it. But that is the oil in the intake problem. So there you go. Here's the airflow sensor that we pulled out of the old plenum. It was right in there like that. And interestingly, it was 90 degrees on the old one. And on the new one, it's off to the, you know, it's crooked, 45 degrees. And I don't want to mess with that and have it get damaged. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in. pops in, and then I'll put a little Loctite on that, but at least it's in there. I didn't want to, I don't want it to get damaged or anything. You know, there it is, hanging down on the inside, and now I am confident it won't be damaged. New part has arrived. So it's been a couple days, and I was able to clean up the rings or the whatever those are called, and get all that oil off of there. And of course, because of that oil, we decided to replace this, which is that right there, and part number that. There you go. And basically it's an oil-air separator. And it comes out with 2 bolts. Let me put you in the tripod here and I'll show you the part. All right, that's a little better with the light. The next order of business here is to tape this hose onto my vacuum. And I'm going to vacuum out each of the ports here and just make sure whatever dust or crap I might have dropped down there, I'm gonna make sure that I get it out. All right, they are vacuumed out. Hopefully there's nothing in there. So my strategy here is I've cleaned these. They're nice, they're soft, you know, supple, they're like new, and there is no in or out. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put them on the manifold side securely. And there is a pretty obvious groove that they sit in. And I'm not gonna put any lubricant or anything on the manifold side. There we go. And I can feel and see all the way around that it's in there. It's in good shape. Okay, now I'm going to put these bottom pieces in. And I'm going to scoot them all the way as far as I can to the outside. And what I'm hoping, so there are actually, I have them pushed back even further than the actual even further than the rubber thing. Okay, the next thing we need to do is hook up the, I dropped a screw down there and I bent this looking for it. This is some kind of heat shield, so I'm just gonna bend it back. It's actually very soft aluminum and it goes right under the air box. So when I reinstall the air box, I'll just make sure that it's not hitting. I don't want any vibrations. But anyway, we're gonna hook up this, which is the solenoid that drives this flap. And it hooks on with 2 Allen screws. We're just gonna reinstall it the same way it came off the old one. The problem is there really isn't a heck of a lot of clearance, so I'm just gonna have to get all the way up in there. And first we're gonna tap it. Man, that's tight. So what I did was I just snapped it onto, I think you can see right here, I snapped it onto the flap. And now there's 2 Allen screws. This time I'm going to be very careful that I don't drop them again. And they attach. I didn't move this thing, so I'm actually going to I'm going to flip it over. And you know, it probably would be easier if I took this thing off, but I don't want to. There we go. There we go, that's the angle. I don't want to undo any vacuum lines. I mean, it's just easier for me if I don't. And not really sure how the vacuum lines come apart. I don't think I care either. I just mostly want to make sure that I don't mess up anything that's hooked up to a computer. Okay, we got that sucker back in. And it is in the open position, as you can see. So it'll be interesting if that thing makes any more noise now that it's, you know, a metal one. So the only thing left to do is to tuck that sucker in there, and I am going to put a little bit of this soapy water around here just to try to help slide it in. And we'll see how much bigger this is than the other one. I'm going to go ahead and take this off because it was kind of difficult to get in there when that was closed, when that was in there. So that'll give us just a little bit more clearance, and now it's just a matter of finagling this thing back in there. All right, in order to get this thing back in, you got to take the bolts out. There's no other way around it. You got to drop the motor far enough to get the bolts out, and I have the motor sitting right now on the jack, and I'm gonna see it lowering. And I'm not sure how low is too low, but I just lowered it quite a bit, and I now can, I'm pretty sure anyway, yeah, see, I'm going to be able to get it in now. And the trick here is just trying to get it around around these rubber things. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it literally, so I'm sure you can see that, you know, I'm in, and of course this rubber thing on this side has moved. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to work on one side at a time and try to get the gasket on this side. You know what? I forgot to replace the air conditioner. That air conditioner bolt. Son of a bitch. All right, well, I'm gonna have to pull this out. At least the motor is now down low enough where I can get it in and out relatively easily. All right, let's get rid of that air conditioner bolt. So they give you a new air conditioner bolt that is lower profile, and I forgot to take it out. So here it is right here. Yeah, you really can't miss it. It is right there. Right there. That air conditioner bolt behind the right there. Right there. That sucker is too tall, I guess, for the metal plenum. And so it's got to come out. And let's see. That's the old one, and the new one is okay, I try to get you in there as tight as I can. Turns out there's a hard way and there's a harder way to do this, and after messing with it, I think the best way to do it is to do the driver's side first. Put the rubber thing on. There you go. And then get this sucker. What'd I do with it? So bolt forward and down, stick that in there, and it's got to be above this plastic wire thing in the back. If you don't get that on there right the first time and just kind of stage it there, I don't think you'll ever get it on, because you got to come in above this wire thing, and because the manifolds are obviously offset, the passenger side is further back. So I've got the passenger side on, I've got both of them on both intakes. I've got the both of the bottom brackets in the right place. On the driver's side, I've got it exactly on the rubber thing right here. On the passenger side, I have it pushed over more towards the manifold. So it's basically half on the manifold, half on the rubber thing. Now I'm going to shove this in here. Let's straddle this thing. And I'm going to try to hold the rubber thing onto the manifold. There we go. Push it in. And on this side, it has not popped off yet. And you can see, you can reach your hand right in and kind of guide it. And you really need to do that, or else it's just going to pop right off like it just did on this side. So once you've got this kind of finessed in there, you can just start wiggling and stick your hand down the throttle body opening and work this rubber thing out from around the plenum. And I'm going to do the driver's side first and get it completely in place. And then I'm going to work on the other side. Now, actually, we do need to kind of, just to give ourselves some more room here, we've got to get this other side up over the top. But all right. All right. So basically what I did was I took a pair of needle nose pliers and I wedged them under this clamp, and I was able to just start the threads. I got maybe like 2 or 3 of them, and now I can get a ratchet in there and just tighten it down. And what I'm doing is you know, I'm just feeling around the back there. I want to make sure that it's sitting good. I can see in, and it's basically right in the track, right as it should be. I mean, it's on there. Let me tell you something, it was a bitch, total bitch. So I'm just going to tighten this one down, frankly, to the part where the threads are clean, because that's how tight it was before. All right, and then this breather tube goes right in here. This one goes right here. All right, driver's side done. Okay, now that now I've got the driver's side completely tight. I can you can really kind of muscle the passenger side without worrying about popping off the driver's side. So that was a good idea. Be able to, that one over there I couldn't squeeze with these because it was just too tight, but this one it looks like I can. Whew, got it on. I just want to check and make sure that it's sitting even, yeah, all the way around, so I feel that plastic thing. And when I look down in there, I can see that it's sitting nice and even. Basically just like the other side. And now I'm just going to tighten that back down. Oh my God, this was ridiculous. Tighten that right down until you can see those, I think you can anyway. Yeah, until those dirty threads are meeting the top there. And I'm just gonna keep an eye right here actually on this metal thing. So I noticed that there we go. That got a little bit bent. That should slide up under there. And on this one it was fine. On this one, I think it got bent out a little bit, so I'm just keeping an eye on it, and if it buckles at all, yeah, now it's, nope, it's still buckling a little bit. I'm just gonna press it up in there. Yeah, there we go. Just kind of help it make that turn, and we're good to go. And the entire gasket is underneath and not, you know, maybe if I put a little lubricant on there and it allowed the thing to slide as it was tightening, but I'm not concerned. I think we're in good shape. So I'm going to reattach this guy, and this is the other side of that breather tube from that oil thing that we replaced. And make sure I didn't drop anything in there. All right, got a little Loctite on the screw here for the airflow sensor. Now, going to clean up this little bit of residue in this throttle with some brake cleaner, and then put the throttle back on. All right, clean and pretty. Okay, so we've reconnected everything. We have plenums in, throttle body's in, clamps are tight, throttle body wire is hooked up, airflow sensor is hooked up, flap thing in the back is hooked up, this crank vent or whatever this is hooked up, this crank vent is hooked up, this oil thing, air separator thing hooked up. All of the little connectors are back in place. Nothing's touching. That new plenum has got like zero clearance. I can see why they replaced the air conditioner nut, because it's missing by 1/8 of an inch. So I think it's time to put the motor back at the right height. I just want to kind of show you this. It is amazing to me how this engine moves around. So I can show you the engine, mufflers. And all we're going to do is crank this sucker right back up. And there it goes. There we go. Basically it's back where it goes. And then I'm just going to tighten up the, I'm going to put the bolts back on and tighten them up. But pretty neat. I decided to go ahead and take the airbox off so I could see how these K&N filters look. You know, I don't actually know how many miles I put on it because I don't pay attention, but I think I've got about 2,000 miles on it. And I will say that there was a little bit of oil residue in the throttle body, and that is right from these because you know, they've got oil in them. Wow, look at that, perfectly clean. A little bit of bugs and stuff, but for the most part, clean. So good, that's good to know. So this one, clearly somebody got a little carried away with the oiling. And these were right out of the box, pre-oiled, you know. So I suspected that it was a little bit over-oiled when I saw the residue in the throttle body. Anyway, I cleaned all that out, cleaned this out. That oil that dripped out of this is probably all the excess, so I'm just going to put it back in, and my bet is most of that oil that was, you know, in the throttle body was this little bit of excess here. So, you know, I think I'll switch them just for kicks. See ya. Got your banner?
Yeah.
See ya. All right, moment of truth. I think I am comfortable to do a startup. Let's see what happens. Well, she runs. That is a very good thing. There's the new Plenum. Everything sounds good. I'm gonna I let it come all the way up to temperature and then put the car back together. You know, the bumper and the wing. Go for a ride. A couple faults, but I was able to fix those. Fans are working, and you can't really see anything, but it is all back together. All right, let's take a ride. So, Plenum is done, car is back together, and I did take it for a little bit of a ride already just to kind of get a feel for it, make sure everything was working, which it is. But what I wanted to do is give you an idea of what everything sounds like. So I have it in Sport Plus, and I don't know if you could tell just there the little bit of pop that you get right after 2,000, maybe 2,500 RPMs. You get this little jolt of power almost. And you know what I think it is? I think it's that flap in that plenum opening and closing. But anyway, this is what it sounds like. I don't think the plenum really has made all that much of a difference. But it has made it in sound anyway. But I do get quite a bit of low-end torque. I'm in my residential community here, so I can't really open it up. But here's my overall thoughts. The project was a nightmare. It was way harder than I thought. And if I didn't have resources like Brian from that shop over in West Palm, I'll put the name of the shop down in the quotes or the comments. If I didn't have you know, a couple of folks from the forum and from Facebook giving me advice, I never would have been able to do it. So those resources are a must. And then, you know, it was just freaking hard. Trying to get those rubber gaskets back around the plenum was just really, really difficult. So would I do it again? Well, I think the combination of the free flow cats, the plenum, and the tune. Right now I'm running a Cobb 93 octane tune. I'm going to do the data log. I'll do that with you so you'll get to see it. I'm going to do the custom tune from FabSpeed. I'll do that with you also so you'll get to see that. I think that end game is a significant difference from the way the car was. So each component, you know, is greater than the sum of its parts, I guess. But this by far was the most difficult thing I have done to a car. So anyway, we're just about to this road where I can really hit it, and what I'll do is go down, I'll give it some gas, and then I'll stop, drop the top, and really let you hear what this exhaust sounds like. When you stand behind the car, I think that you can hear the air intake. It just sounds slightly different. Probably, I mean, it's aluminum, it's not plastic, so that could be it. Anyway, I don't have that fancy dual camera thing, so I can't show you my dash, but I'm in second, and that's 6,000 RPMs at a second. I really got to take it easy. It's not exactly the safest spot to speed. So that's fifth. You can hear when I take it off the gas or downshift, you get that rumble. That rumble is just so much better than it was. That popping, that backfire popping, I love it. I absolutely love that sound. Alright, after this curve here, I can open it up a little bit. Jesus. I'm not going to tell you how fast that was, but that was about 6,000 RPMs at a fourth. A little faster than comfortable, but anyway, that's what it sounds like, and that's the response. The response between 2,000 and say 4,000 or 5,000 RPMs is significantly better. So this is just fifth. Yeah, I'm going too fast. That was just flooring it in fifth. I mean, it is way more responsive. It won't let me put it in seventh. There we go. Alright, I got a spot to turn around up here, so I'm going to go ahead and drop the top. And I don't know how much wind noise we're going to get.
Okay, band.
But it sounds so great with the top down, so. Alright, here we go. Red line out of first, 10 second. hope you can hear it. I hope the wind noise isn't too crazy. I'll just, once we're off this road, I'll be able to do the 0 to 40 thing, so you can get an idea of what kind of sound. I may cut some of this out. We're at 7 minutes. I really don't know how much, how interesting it is to just watch me drive. Gives you a pretty good idea of this project, what it sounds like, and you know, some representation of the power gain. I would absolutely do it all again. Replacing that plenum was an unbelievable amount of work. To tell you the truth, now that I've done it, if I did it again on another car, it would go way smoother. The big hiccup was not realizing that I had to lower the motor. Some stuff that I'll go back and follow up on is I will torque down those nuts, the 2 motor mount nuts. The torque setting is 58 pounds, and after I drive it here for a little bit, I'll go and double check those. Aside from that, there's nothing else really to check. I mean, I triple checked every connection, and I'll let the car tell me if something's wrong. When I do the oil change, I'll look in there as best I can, but I'm not removing the wing again, and you know, I'm not getting that into it. I think we'll be fine. The next project will be to replace the tune that's on the car now with the Fab Speed custom tune. So stay tuned, please subscribe. That will be a upcoming video. The data logging and the sending the data log to Fab Speed, and then also sending and then redoing the tune, right? So anyway, once again, please subscribe, and thanks for watching. See ya.